What's up, weirdo? Shadetree Surgeon here with multiple bikes in various states of disrepair. It's America's birthday, it's 4th of July, but we're not partying, we're fixing motorcycles because everybody else is partying, which leaves me free to catch up on some work. I've got to get 3 separate motorcycles from my house to Brapsar Garage today, but I'm going to start with the easiest one, the most reliable one, the Honda Goldwing, the Raspberry Buffet. Even though it is the easiest one to get up there, still got a couple problems right now. Luckily with Goldwings, most of the problems don't prevent them from advancing. So they're definitely starting to rack up on the Raspberry Buffet right now. It's in need of a little bit of love. One of the first things being is that the front brake, yeah, that's not good. Another thing being that the choke cable absolutely completely sticks, so you really got to kind of just hold it here and warm it up, which is not the best for it. And let me tell you, the GL 1500, they start right up and they're ready to go. The GL 1200 with 4 carburetors, these things, even in hot weather, are freaking cold-blooded. Always a little disconcerting when you're on a bike and you grab a handful of front brake, as I'm doing right now, and nothing really happens. Like, it's kind of slowing down a little bit, but yeah, that's not doing anything. But on the Goldwing, you can still ride it around. Like, even if I was in the middle of a trip, this wouldn't be that big of a deal because the front brake only operates one of the front discs, and the rear brake operates one of the front discs and the rear disc. So even though when I grab the front brake and this happens, when I hit the rear brake, I mean that on a Goldwing, that does the majority of your braking anyway. It's just one of those quirks that if you ride a Goldwing, you get used to. It's such a funny thing because everyone's so, especially sport bike guys, are very front brake heavy. And dirt bike guys are always like, oh, I use the rear brake all the time. Well, dirt bike guys, chopper guys, and Goldwing guys are all rear brake guys because that does almost all your stopping power. Although if for some reason you gotta have your foot off the right peg, you really do kind of want a front brake. That's not a bad thing to have. And it feels like there's a bunch of air bubbles in it, but that is a little disconcerting as well because that's supposed to be a sealed system. And it was working before, so if there's air bubbles in it now, I mean, they got in there somehow, so that's not good. So we got to do an oil change on this. I've also got a little bit of noise in the drivetrain. I feel maybe there's a universal joint going bad or something. There's a little bit of a, when I let off the throttle and go back into it, a little bit of a clack, a little bit of slop in the drivetrain. And I'm worried that one of the universal joints on the drive shaft might be needed to be replaced. I got that front brake issue. You need to figure out if it's leaking from somewhere, or maybe it's just low on fluid. I haven't even looked at it yet. And of course, the fact that we just put over 3,000 miles on this bike. It's time for an oil change. Yeah, Goldwings go forever, but you still got to maintain them. Kind of the cool thing about Goldwings, though, even though it's got that laundry list of problems right now, it has not failed to advance. Hear that clack when I let off the throttle? That's what I'm worried about. I don't remember that being there before. Of course, Flipknot was the one who just put a few thousand miles on this bike, so it may have developed during the trip to Texas and back. But I don't think I remember that drivetrain slot being there. All right, let's go get the second bike that needs work. Willem Dafoe's The Green Goblin is next, and hopefully that clutch hasn't gotten enough, too much air in it. Nothing but hydraulic problems today for me to get it up to the shop, and unfortunately, no, the lame duck is not the third bike, but more on that thing coming soon. Give her a squirt from the power jet. Uh-oh, about to lose my eagle. All right, let's pump this sucker up. Hopefully we're gonna fix this problem today. Oh, still going into neutral while you're moving, but I just released that clutch releases right off the handlebar, and I did pump it up, so still pretty sus right now. Although everything else on Willem Dafoe's The Green Goblin is working like gangbusters, man. The brakes work good, it goes fast. Well, fast for a 1200 anyway. They aren't very fast, but it still feels faster than my Goldwing. I don't know if it is or not, but it certainly makes a lot of noise. At least he was also complaining about a few wobbles around 80 miles an hour. And I don't know if that's from the fairing or just because she's light, or if possibly this thing needed some new neck bearings. I'm not feeling much of a wobble, but I do weigh a lot more than Shay. Could be this bike just needs a steering stabilizer because she's so light. The less you weigh, the more the wind affects you, that's for sure. The speedometers were correct, about 85. Feels solid as a rock to me. With a solid mountain Sportster, at 80 miles an hour, it's definitely giving you the magic finger massage on the foot pegs there. All right, let's see. It's starting to feel a little unstable around 90. It might be this fairing, I'm not sure. I can start to feel like kind of drift in the wind a little, but didn't feel like a steering wobble, but I could definitely feel it start to get a little bit loose there around 90 miles an hour.
Well, the Suzuki Savage was going to be the other bike, but it's proving definitely the most difficult to get started because as I was trying to jump start it, we now have a broken clutch cable. So I'm going to go ahead and take the Milk Toast Pacific Coast up to the shop because I have a bunch of random clutch cables up there, but we might be out of luck because this clutch cable does look proprietary because the adjustments are right there on the end. We'll see if we can fab something up though.
Honda to the rescue. You know, certainly no one ever wants to admit that they got rescued by the Pacific Coast, but it does actually make a pretty admirable rescue vehicle. Not only is it a Honda and stone cold reliable, but it's also got plenty of trunk space that is now old moldy iced coffee free because Shay cleaned it. I've got a few clutch cables lying around at Brapstar Garage, but something tells me I might actually have to order one specific to the Savage. Well, I thought I was gonna stop and get some ethanol-free gas, but looks like everyone's filling up. No one's worried about the hurricane coming. Ooh, maybe, is that a spot opening up? Oh, baby. It's all these New Yorkers, man. First hurricane of the season, and they're all flipping out. Everybody wants to move to Florida. All these New Yorkers want to move to Florida until the first hurricane comes. They all freak out, or they get attacked by an alligator, or a bath salt crazed hobo zombie tries to eat their face off. Then all of a sudden, you gotta be a Floridian to live in Florida, baby. I will tell you, these Lich King berserker hobo zombies, they do come with a berserker status when taking a potion of methamphetamines for a couple rounds, so you gotta watch yourself. That's Florida, baby. If it was easy to live in Florida, it'd be California, okay? A couple of wild hobo attacks and an alligator scratching at your doorstep, all of a sudden, it sends a few people packing and we still get a little bit of breathing room down here.
All right, I thought I had a clutch cable, but I don't. So we're just gonna have to wing it with what we have. And what we have is wings, baby. I'm about to attempt a maneuver that should never be tried by anybody at home. I've got 2 lifts, I've got 2 gigantic gold wings, and we're about to double them up, baby. This might be the last time I say anything to the camera because every other time I've tried to put a gold wing on a lift, it's literally been fail army worthy. So I feel like I've only got so many times left before I drop one on top of my stupid ass head. Luckily, it's real thick, baby. I think I'm protected.
And I forgot that the front brake doesn't work. Always a little tricky when you can't really see where the front wheel is. I think I got it. Oh, one down. It's gonna stay? Maybe.
And our intrepid hero put 2 gold wings on a lift within minutes without absolute horrific incident. Remains to be seen. Boys, I'm gonna tell you right now, putting 2 wings on the lift, double winging it up here, is not for the faint of heart. It's still July in Florida, and this shop ain't got no AC, so before I turn a single wrench on these things, I'm gonna go ahead and sit down and cool off for a second. All right, I've cooled off as you can be in July in Florida anyway. Still sweating, just not quite as profusely as I was before. So let's get these things jacked up. First things first, gotta change the oil in both Goldwings, but they both have issues. I'm having some issues with the rear brake on the mail order Glide. I think it's probably just out of pads, but I'm just gonna go ahead and take a look at it. And of course, having issues with the front brake on the Raspberry Buffet. They both need oil changes. I wanna check out the universal joint on the Raspberry Buffet. I feel like there was something else I needed to look at too, but who knows, maybe I'll figure it out later. We're definitely putting these Harbor Freight lifts to the test with these Goldwings. Very close approaching the maximum weight requirement or the weight limit of these Harbor Freight lifts, but I haven't had one fall off yet. Yet being the operative word here. Nothing bad's happened yet, but I'm leaving plenty of room for error. A big difference in an oil change on a GL 1200 and a GL 1500 is a cartridge oil filter. A cartridge oil filter is actually contained in this thing, and there should be an O-ring behind it. It's a little bit of an older design than the screw-on oil filter that most bikes use now. If you reach under here, the only other thing you gotta pull out is a 17mm drain plug. I can't really see it either, but I know it's there, and I've done this before. I realize not everybody's gonna have access to a wobble and a long extension, but these oil drain plugs are in kind of an awkward position on the GL 1200, so if you have this, it really helps. Worth mentioning that, I don't know if all kits come with this, but the K&N filter bought from Cycle Gear actually did come with a new O-ring for the oil filter assembly, and looks like it came with a new O-ring for the drain plug as well. So just an oil filter, but nice that it came with basically an oil filter kit. I feel like a lot of people say you don't have to do this, but I always take a little bit of oil and just pour it directly in the oil filter. I do that whether it's a cartridge style or whether it's a screw-on style. And I was very first taught how to change oil on anything is I've always just poured a little bit in there and usually taken a dab of oil, and if it's a cartridge or if it's a screw-on filter, put a little bit around the O-ring. And I just do the same thing for this one. At least you know it ain't gonna hurt nothing.
Well, it's at my lift as it drips a little oil back down on it.
I almost don't want to even say what kind of oil I'm using because opinions are like assholes, and everyone who's got a Goldwing is an asshole will tell you what oil you're using is wrong. Is that how the saying goes? What I do know is it takes almost or close to 4 quarts. How much oil a Goldwing takes also up for much debate. You know how much oil your Goldwing takes? Enough. Just check the damn dipstick. What I like to do with any vehicle is put in about the recommended amount of oil, start the engine for a few seconds, and then check the oil. Remember to take your funnel out before you start the engine, or else you're in for a bad time. Ask me how I know. And of course, don't forget to check your oil while it's upright like my Goldwing is, or while it's on the center stand. It's looking pretty good to me. You know how much oil I'll put in it? The right amount. All right, let's see if we can peek back in this thing and see what we can see. Kind of hard to see in there, unfortunately. Also unfortunate that Honda kind of made these drive shafts non-rebuildable. The only option is pretty much to replace the whole thing. All right, now they got the rear tire off the lift. I can put it in gear, see if I can like visually see any slop in here. If I can visually see this kind of slopping around a little bit, maybe I'll have a better idea what's going on. I've also seen a couple other guys say that they've had a clicking sound come from the rear shocks, so that's a possibility. I just really want to eliminate the drive shaft. Here's what I'm seeing. If I go back the other way, real slow, I get a click right there. Y'all see that? I'll do it again. That click right there. I don't think it's the U-joint. I think it's the final drive. What happens is these final drives need to be greased, and if you don't grease them, they get a little bit of slop in them. Might have to be replaced. And when I say final drive, I mean where the final drive meets up with the actual wheel. There's some splines there. I want to say that's what it is, because I can look at the actual U-joint while this is happening, and it doesn't look like the U-joint's moving. It feels like it's back here in the wheel. Anyway, regardless, this rear wheel is gonna have to come off. Now, up here to the front of the vehicle, things are even worse. We have some leaking fork seals. That's never good. Especially, I mean, I think pretty sure that the neck bearing on this thing needs to be replaced anyway, but this whole front end's gonna have to come apart and replace these fork seals because there's just oil all over it. And you remember the front brakes? Well, taking a look at these looks even worse.
Go ahead and look in here. You can see things are pretty damn greasy up there. So the entire front disc is covered in fluid, I assume brake fluid. I can see that these pistons are leaking, so this front caliper is definitely gonna have to be rebuilt. If you look in here from this side, you can definitely see how much oil and grime is on that front caliper there, so that's not good.
All in all, I just changed the oil on this Goldwing, but that is the very least of what it needs right now. The forks need to be rebuilt, the front caliper needs to be rebuilt, and the final drive splines need to be greased. So I've got it up on the lift, and I'm pretty sure that this sucker is going to be staying here for a minute. All right, it's the next day. I will tell you, this is something that happens to me sometimes when I didn't know everything that was wrong with this bike. I knew it needed some work, but when it gets to that point where it just feels overwhelming, sometimes it just like takes the wind out of my sails, you know. And I know this happens to you guys, maybe not if you're a professional mechanic, but I am definitely not a professional, and so one thing stacked up after another, and I was kind of messing with it and kind of looking up some how-tos on how to do the forks and trying to look up parts, and I just got overwhelmed because I'm like, man, this is actually kind of a big involved job. I slept on it instead of trying to force myself to do it anyway. We're back here the next day, and I'm going to start tackling it. Obviously, I don't have the parts to rebuild the front forks. I don't have the parts to rebuild the caliper. But I don't know, still not sure exactly what's up with the rear end. One of the biggest things that is in my way when it comes to taking something like this apart is organization. You should know your weaknesses, and I know my weaknesses very well because they are many and varied. I can't help but acknowledge them because one of them bites me in the ass 10 times a freaking day. But number one on that list is organization. And so I've gotten a few things here, including a roll-around tool cart, some small little cubby holes for all my nuts and bolts, and so I can take something apart that's going to be apart for multiple days and just be confident that all of the stuff for it is in one place. And I really got to keep on top of myself to make sure I actually keep up with that, because that's just like the enemy of putting something back together, and it just causes so much more frustration when your parts are scattered from one end of the shop to the other, which is definitely something that I do. So I'm going to go ahead and slap together this tool cart that is hopefully going to be my saving grace when it comes to being organized. And I also got a parts washer. It's something those shops been needing for a while, and especially if I'm going to start taking apart those forks, those bottom sliders, those are going to need to be washed in a parts cleaner. That's a way bigger job than a can of brake clean is really cut out for. So I want to make sure that they're clean inside when I put everything back together, because I'm not going to want to have to do this again.
All right, for my roll-around cart, I went with the Harbor Freight Special, the U.S. General 30-inch service cart.
You know, it's definitely not the best, it's definitely not Snap-on, but it's just a roll-around cart to put parts on, and that can contain the extra parts to a project, which is all I needed to do. It doesn't have to be fancy. Everyone always asks me how Harbor Freight stuff is, especially the lifts, the motorcycle lifts that these two Goldwings are on. And if they can lift these two Goldwings, I'm pretty sure they can lift anything you have. The weak point on these things is, of course, the bottle jack, the most complex part of it, because the rest of the lift is just a lift. I will tell you, if you want a review of them right now,
I jacked this one up last night, and I jacked this one up last night. So when I left, you see, I did not let this one back on the ground, but it's on the ground.
And this is actually a brand new lift. We've only had it for a few months, maybe 6 months or something like that, and haven't even used it that much. So I guess I'm gonna go ahead and be replacing the bottle jack on this one too. Luckily, you can buy a replacement bottle jack that is not made by Harbor Freight and works way, way better than the original equipment that they come with. I had to replace it on this one. You'll see that the part down there is actually black instead of red, and that's that replacement bottle jack. Works a whole lot better. It looks like this lift already needs one. Uh-oh. Already breaking the rules. Whoops. Gotta remember that thing's on wheels. All right, baby. I think that worked out just fine. All right, well, my tool cart's assembled. That's all well and good. Well, not tool carts, my crash cart. Not for tools, more for keeping nuts and bolts and pieces of a project that's in progress all in one place, and setting the tools for it there too. Now, here's the deal though. I've got that gold wing on the lift, which is gonna need a lot of work. I've got that gold, whoa, okay, rotated too far. There we go. I've got that gold wing on a lift that's not holding pressure, but it needs rear brakes and an oil change. And I need a motorcycle to ride. So I was getting all gung-ho, putting together my tool cart, feeling good, feeling organized. All of a sudden, I then also realized one of my other big weaknesses is prioritization. And let's go ahead and make the motorcycle I'm actually gonna ride around and go to work with a priority right now, instead of working on the one that I don't even have parts for, because I need a bike. There's a joke in the Goldwing community, and that joke is pretty much any maintenance procedure on a GL 1500 begins with remove the seat. Now that I've spent some time working on a GL 1500, I don't really understand why that's a joke. It's just actually true. Fortunately, accessing the rear brakes does necessitate the removal of the right-hand saddlebag. Whoops. Think again, dipshit. Unfortunately, accessing the rear brake necessitates the removal of the left-hand saddlebag. Getting ahead of myself here, aren't I? This is why I don't really like anybody but me to ride the motorcycles around that I work on. Oh, look at that. My crash cart already coming in handy. Look at how organized I am. This probably won't last long. I wonder if that's supposed to be connected to something. Unfortunately for me, taking off my bag to access the rear brake, since this Goldwing does have some extra bling, it takes some extra steps. What kind of Mickey Mouse shit they have for this crap, but not a fan. Well, that one broke off. Very important. This is a little plastic piece that actuates this arm to open the bag underneath. And from what I hear, they're kind of hard to come by. Don't lose these. I always forget to disconnect something, and in this case it was the wire for the side running lights on this thing. Always a couple extras you don't see. I think we finally got it. Whew, there she goes. Yeah, I'm glad I'm dealing with this. I just kind of checked that, and there's basically no pad left. Definitely need to be changed. Apparently there's two different sizes on this. Weird. We got a 14 and a 12. All right. Seems pretty strange. Come on. There we go. All right. Yeah, that's bad. All right. Those are toast. Holy mackerel. Oh, I'm lucky I didn't just keep riding around on it and I took this apart. These are almost down to bare metal, so if I'd gone any farther, I'd be replacing a rotor too. As it is,
someone a little more careful than me probably would replace the rotor. Hey, we're learning this one together, all right? I didn't look up a how-to on this one because I was like, oh, brakes, I can do that. And all of a sudden there's some extra stuff to take off. I probably should have done this while it was still on there. This is not a hammer, but it sure can work like one in a pinch. So I certainly didn't invent this method. What I like to do when compressing the pistons, when you have two separate ones like this, is I'll just take one of the old brake pads and stick it on there like that. And that way I got an even piece when I'm trying to compress them back in there. If you don't push them down separately, they'll push one another out when you try and stick them in there.
Well, that part was easy. Changing the brakes is super, super easy on a motorcycle. Unless it's a Goldwing, because changing the brakes isn't the hard part. That took about 15 minutes. Putting the bag back on is probably going to take about an hour.
I also want to point out how awesome my crash cart worked. I've got all my nuts and bolts here, and every time I use the tool, I put it back in the cart so I'm not searching for it, because it's just like this amazing, everyone knows who works on something, it's this insane time suck. It's just a time suck when you're looking for a tool that was just in your hand. Well, if you train yourself, I'm not saying I've perfectly trained myself to do this yet because I spent like 10 minutes looking for a tool that I left in the trunk of the Goldwing, but if you train yourself to always take the tool that was in your hand and when you're done with it or not using it, put it directly back into your crash cart, then you always know where to look for it. What we're trying to eliminate here, one of the ways I'm trying to be a bit more efficient with my time, is to stop that eternal, I'm looking for a tool that was literally just in my hand. Okay. Now for the hard part.
All right, now that the bags are all back together and I got rear brakes again, get the oil changed. Once again, that age-old question that has destroyed friendships, broken marriages, started wars. How much oil does a Honda Goldwing take? The answer? Enough.
And before anybody wants to give me a hard time about working on Goldwings, a Japanese bike during the 4th of July,
Read it and weep, nerd. All right, unfortunately, that's going to about wrap it up for this episode. The oil is changed, the brakes are changed. Test ride's going to have to wait because we are currently in the middle of a hurricane right now. Or a tropical storm, at least. We're not going to call it a hurricane just yet. I'm definitely not a fair weather rider. Proven that enough times on my channel to go ahead and leave the bike here instead of doing a test ride in the middle of a hurricane. Either way, I'm pretty stoked about how this crash cart is working out with this tool organizer. It really helped keep my tools organized. It helped me not be looking around for tools. It helped me keep my nuts and bolts organized. Like, I don't know, man. This is probably something they teach you if you go to school for this kind of stuff. And if you're a mechanic for a living, maybe it's just something you just do like second nature, but it really helped out. So I managed to take that side back completely off, change the rear brakes, change the oil, and on a Goldwing, I only had 3 extra bolts left over. Not bad. I will say if you finished that job and you only got 3 bolts left over, you're not doing too bad at all. So I'm going to count that one as a W, boys. Till next time, y'all. Keep it weird.